Hi, and welcome back to Katie's Corner in Space Lower Decks Standout Scenes. And let me just tell you now, there were a lot. Most episodes, I start creating clips and find a good 4 or 5, but this one had me struggling to pick just 5 or 6. It was a true crossover, which for me meant nearly every moment was memorable. And let's face it, an episode with Quark is always bound to be full of entertainment. The incredible thing is the best scene in the episode was still all about one of our Lower Decks crew, but only because of trouble caused by none other than Quark, whose nefarious ways were only discovered because the Cerritos Captain Freeman, after being reassigned to negotiate with the Karama on DS9, had to fly by the seat of her pants with no real time to prepare. But the reassignment gives our crew time to tour the station, which of course includes Quarks and some Dabo for bold Boimler. And while Tendi meets another Starfleet Orion, one seemingly more proud of their pirate background than she, Rutherford can't stop fanboying at every nook and cranny of the station until they are ordered to go load the gifts for the Karama onto their ship. Right about then, the visiting Karama, a mercantile race, are getting their own tour by Freeman, who hopes touting Quark's success will convince the visiting Gamma Quadrant race to move forward with the negotiations. However, as it so happens, Quark's famous replicators were using Karama technology, and Quark is immediately seized by the visitors and transported away while knocking out station power in the process. Meanwhile, Mariner is getting to know Jennifer's friends at a party, salon, and quite frankly pretending to be someone else so they will like her. It becomes increasingly obvious she just doesn't fit in, and their idea of fun is not hers. On the Karama ship, Tendi catches Quark being dragged by the compartment they were loading the gift into, and she digs deep to bring out her inner pirate in a fantastic display of gymnastics, thievery, quick thinking, and just basic piracy as she brings the ship to a full stop just before it could escape through the wormhole back to the Gamma Quadrant. Back in the salon, all of Jennifer's friends lost their minds as their crafty candles ate up the limited air. And the only real option is for Mariner to stun each of them, including herself and Jennifer. At Ops, power has been restored. Kira, Freeman, and Randall watch the view screen as the tractor beam is successfully deployed and the Karama ship is pulled back to the station. Quark's indiscretions are admitted, and Freeman manages to work out a deal which not only brings the Karama business to the Alpha Quadrant, but manages to keep Quark out of prison. Now, before I get started with my top picks for this week's standout scenes, this is a good time to hit that subscription button for future reviews and shorts. Also, don't forget to like if, you like the video, and always feel free to comment below. I do try to respond to most comments in some way. When it comes to the standout scenes for this episode, I will admit I kind of want to list the whole damn show, so while I'll probably mention nearly every moment, I'll try to boil it down to one of a similar bunch that really took the cake. Because, well, who doesn't love cake? Now, I adore the visit to Deep Space Nine. We knew some true crossovers were coming this season, and oh boy, was this a fun one. The quick mention of Cisco in the Celestial Temple and Rutherford's wanting to have a heart-to-heart with a junior reporter were welcome. Including Ops and spending much of the episode at Quark's was a terrific way to spend the episode, but I can't not mention that opening view and the homage paid to the 7 seasons we had watching that wormhole open. Now that's how you start a crossover episode. Can I get a woot woot for the little tour of the promenade? Seeing Kira tout the virtues of her command as she strolls through the familiar ground made my heart leap. She was always such a fantastic character, and I love Nana Visitor for her work not just on this trek, but so much I've seen her on since. Hell, I was just talking about a show she was on not long after DS9 called Dark Angel. I think she channeled the Intendant there. But here, she was just so amazingly Kira, especially as she and Shax tried to figure out who saved whom the most. My money is on Kira, but I'm glad they'd settled it with a drink and a laugh at the end. As a side note, I don't often allow my 7-year-old to watch this series, but I let her watch this one and she was real concerned Shax and Kira were really mad at each other. But I reassured her they were just old friends who both thought the other was a great friend to be counted on. And I really liked that whole bit, personally. Of course they were in the Resistance together. Space is big, unless you're on Star Trek. On to Mariner's night with her current paramour, and there were some discussions in the comments about Mariner's sexuality a few episodes ago, where Dead Man Walking 789 aptly pointed out Mariner says herself she's pan, more specifically into bad boys and bad girls, non-binary bad babes. However, that doesn't mean she doesn't want to make a good impression on Jenny's friends. So she does her best not to act like herself, which is funny and sad at the same time, but she totally makes up for it by stunning the room. Literally. Though I found Jennifer smiling as Mariner did this the more poignant moment in the scene. Because, does this mean she's not just bad, but a bit psychotic? Something to marinate on, Mariner? While I got a huge kick out of Rutherford's exuberance over all things DS9, fortune favoring the bold Boimler cracked me up. Mostly because his Ferengi attendants worried that anger was just so predictably Ferengi. And I admit, since some Starfleet personnel either do keep Latinum from wagers or allow use of credit in place of it, I was mostly watching to see if Boimler got up and said, "Thanks for the game," leaving the Latinum behind and confusing the crap out of the Ferengi, or if he'd take his winnings. But I loved the writer's end instead. A gift certificate Boimler is more than thrilled to receive, and a really pleased Ferengi. Now, the Karama were pretty standard when it comes to the mild threat of the day, though why they came packing to what was essentially just a trade negotiation seemed a bit over the top. Their grumbling and lack of excitement over the awesomeness of DS9 made Freeman's job more complicated and kind of got on my nerves as well. But when they discovered Quark's theft and their technology and learned that that was how he was profiting, I found it really well done. Basically giving us a full backstory of Quark's former association with their species and why he'd be a wanted man. But just transporting him away without notice and interrupting power for the entire station was great. I mean, bad, but a great twist. I didn't see that one coming at all. But when it comes to this week's best scenes, it was all Tendi, and oh my gosh, was she just the bestest badass in all of the lower decks this week, or what? First, she meets this blowhard who ends up being a poser from freaking Ohio. Ohio! Nothing against Ohio, I personally love Cedar Point, but you aren't really known for your Orions, and this guy was a piece of work poser. But Tendi handled him, and finally just told him how she really felt once he broke down. Now I'm glad he fessed up, but dude, I just don't like him, and I hope they don't bring that character back anytime soon. Now when it comes to the Orions and the example Tendi set, I mean, say what you will about the Orions and their piracy, but their educational methods must be incredible. Gymnastics and physical training, thinking on your feet or in the air, a thorough understanding of ship security regardless of the model or species or freaking quadrant in which it was constructed. Now, I would credit Starfleet with some of it, but she said herself she was pirating, and it was awesome. Last week she was totally Tendi, and this week she brought that to a whole nother level, and I loved it. So much, I couldn't create a clip all on its own because I just couldn't give the scenes credit with a limit of 90 seconds or less without saying something. As much as I've been looking forward to the crossovers for Season 3, I was worried my expectations would have been built too high to reach, but once again, Lower Decks did not disappoint. This season has just been a fantastic ride so far, and if you'd like to revisit some of those moments, you can check more out here, and I'll see you there.